We're live.
Good afternoon, Crystal. How are you?
I'm fine after all of that troubleshooting that we did. Not quite sure what we did, but I guess we did it.
Hello.
I'm
Oh my
wonderful.
word.
How was your holiday?
Absolutely fantastic.
Good.
Absolutely fantastic. Got a good meal in. Did a little cooking. Nobody died. We're in good shape.
Awesome. Awesome.
I think, um, fixing a good meal is kind of like flying an airplane. Any landing you walk away from, any time where no one dies, you're good.
Yeah, I guess. I guess that's the right way to put that.
Woo!
Long as no one dies.
No one died. Yeah, no
Yeah.
canaries in the coal mine. Everything's good. How was yours?
Mine was wonderful. It was quiet. Food was excellent. My brother-in-law fixes food, so it was
Oh, cool.
awesome.
Cool.
And that was it. We didn't have people over. One person, but I don't know. They came and left. They came and picked up food and left. And I came downstairs and they were already gone. So they get their food in their
Came
Tupperware
and
and they
left.
left.
Oh
And
no.
actually, that night I worked on my book, so
Oh,
that was
okay.
good.
Well,
And then the
good.
next day we put the Christmas tree up, so it was a good
Nice.
four
Your
days
tree's
off.
already up. Your Christmas tree is already up.
Christmas tree is up.
I guess that is a Thanksgiving Day tradition. Next day or something
Well,
like
at
that.
least now we get to enjoy it for 3 weeks
A month.
versus
Yeah. A
two
couple of
days.
days. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So
Cool.
that was a good thing. So we're
Yeah.
we're happy with that.
Good deal.
Hmm.
Well, unlike Christmas, um, we have this. This is nothing like Christmas. But it is kind of something that I really like talking to folks about. I sent you some notes on it. Did you get them?
I did.
Good deal. Yeah. So it's a wee bit of important actually, especially if you happen to be a mid-sized business. Oh. So what we're actually going to talk about is the shift that occurred a few years ago from the federal government and attorneys with regard to going after clients that happen to be medium-sized clients. There used to be this um, feeling in the industry that if you were a large client, then you needed to run audits and you needed to make sure that you were, um, you know, dotting your I's and crossing your T's, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now we're seeing that those needs are actually coming down towards smaller companies, smaller and mid-sized companies, and there's a very, very distinct reason for that, and that is, like we were talking about at the top of the page there, they're low-hanging fruit, not because they are trying to defraud people, but because they don't necessarily document very well. So
Ah.
yeah, so it's because of that that they're becoming. I think I did the research here, and the quote was, "They're becoming the path of least resistance for some attorneys." Right? You're working for a company, you get disgruntled, you don't think they're treating you well, so you sue them,
Okay.
and because the company is kind of small, they're thinking, "Oh, nobody's paying attention to us," and they become easy targets. So, you want to talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
So, let me read your bio first, so we
Mm-hmm.
know who you are. Hello, everybody. This is Jevon Thomas with BTA Advisory Group and Jevon Thomas Retirement Plan Consultants. I'm sitting here with my friend and colleague Crystal Mitchell, and we are going to talk about why mid-sized companies need to be aware that they could be being targeted by attorneys for not fulfilling their fiduciary responsibility, not
Mm.
acting in the best interest of children. So, we're going to talk about Crystal Mitchell for a moment here. Crystal is a business coach and consultant. She's the CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions, co-director of Recycling Black Dollars. She's also the co-host of another radio program or TV broadcast program. That is Crystal and Gilbert. I'm sorry, that's the Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert. How is Gilbert doing? He's from Jamaica.
He's from Jamaica. He doesn't really come out much, so he's safe.
Okay.
He's
Okay.
relatively safe.
Okay.
He's and I don't think they've gotten to that grouping of people, but they're threatening to. But he's good. He's good.
I mean, his family in Jamaica.
Oh, his family in Jamaica. He doesn't have a lot. Well, he doesn't have a lot left there. Most of his family. You mean
Okay.
after the hurricane? You mean?
Right, right,
Oh,
right.
yeah. Most of his family's in New York.
Oh, okay. Okay. All
Hmm.
right. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so back to Crystal. She's an instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College, a certified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor, and a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. Hey, Crystal, how are you?
I'm fine.
Okay. Okay, so let's jump right in. Mid-sized companies. Now, I know you do a lot of books for companies that are just starting, but eventually they get a little bit bigger and they get retirement plans. Has
Hmm.
anybody ever said to you, now that I've got this, what do I do with it? Or how do I protect myself? Or do I have to worry about that? Or what kind of comments has anybody ever said to you about that kind of stuff?
Well, my larger companies, and I don't have a lot of them now. I used to have quite a few of those. Obviously, they had an HR department, and so
Right.
because of that, I kind of interacted more with the HR director or the person that was running HR,
Mm-hmm.
and they handled the interior stuff with
Uh-huh.
their employees.
I
So
see.
that makes it much easier because from business owners tend to be very focused on one thing, running their business, and that's what they do best.
Yep.
And so when it's any outside of that, then that's usually when we have challenges because they're not that's not a priority for them,
Right.
and so that means you have to really push them, and they're not exactly wanting to be pushed.
Right. Indeed. Indeed.
So sometimes that's the issue you have with them, but overall, um, I think having the ones I have had, they've actually had someone, their retirement plan advisor, and they kept them up to current and up to date.
Ah, well, that's good.
Yeah,
That's very
yeah,
good.
yeah. And this is probably for later on in in our conversation, but with what's happening now, um, and you can answer it afterwards, but I'll put the question out there now. With so many large companies or mid-sized companies that have reduced everybody or their employee size to a small number, I think they think they're going to replace them with AI. What is happening there? But you can say that for the end.
Well, actually, it's probably a good thing for us to talk about now. I mean, I definitely want to talk about what plaintiffs are looking for. That is how mid-sized company leaders can protect themselves and what they should watch out for. But you're making a really good point. Uh, we do live in a sue happy society, so depending on if I can if I can give both sides here and not be one side or the other. From the employer's point of view, they're there to make money. That's their deal. I mean, they don't start a company so that they can make money for other people, right? They
Mhm.
tend to
Mhm.
want to start that so they can feed their families. And
Mhm.
for those of us that are employees, we're there because we want the security and not actually to have to go out and take the risk of opening our own business, right? We want to work there and want to have someone else's. We want to
Mhm.
lean on someone else's security of having a good company. So that's not a bad place to be, but as you just said, there are lots of employees that are thinking, can I be replaced by AI? And I think it's a very good concern because I know in my business I'm starting to use AI a lot more, I don't have anyone working for me, but if I was working for someone, I'd be a bit worried. And I think we'd have to take the path that you were talking to me before, which is take that AI class, right? You have to become your own best advocate, and you have to become your own best um, skill builder. Let's call it that, right?
Mhm.
There was a time when companies, um, as you know, sometimes they would pay for your advanced degree. Sometimes they would do all kinds of things to make sure that you were a happy employee. And now it's up to the employee to do that. So I believe I'm answering your question when I say, from the employer level, yeah, AI is coming, and there's a very good chance it can reduce staff, and yeah, we might just do that. And when I come from the employee level, I have to say, yeah, they might do that, so I need to get ready. I need to make myself even more valuable. If I'm going to be an employee, I have to take the responsibility, number one, to make myself more valuable. Number two, pay for my own retirement.
Mm.
We have this idea that we're only going to match we're only going to put money in as far as the employer matches. It's not the
Mhm.
employer's job, especially in these small companies, but anywhere. It's not the employer's job to pay for your retirement. The idea of a pension for most of corporate America is long gone. I'm sorry to say, but that is not the way it goes.
Mm.
And even some unions are starting to have what we call like they do in the armed services now, some sort of thrift plan, where the employee has to start contributing in order to fulfill their retirement dreams. They can't just rely upon the pension. So, good deal it was, but rather expensive. And
Mm.
the social contract between employers and employees has changed.
Mm. Yeah.
They've changed. So, not too many companies are offering a pension. And I would say also, as horrible as that is, we do live in a dynamic world. And this is pretty much a pretty good thing for us to talk about, because I know you've got some comments as well. We live in a dynamic world where things are changing, and the deals that we make one day, as you can tell with our new president, um, they can change depending on
Mhm.
what's happening in the world. So this idea of getting yourself a good, stable job where um, you can work there for 30 or 40 years and then retire with a good pension and live a good life, we don't have that anymore. That
Right.
that only exists in very few places, and even those places are getting cut back. So, with what you do when you're talking to folks who maybe they're coming from a place where they had a pension, or they're coming from a place where they had a really nice benefit, they're
Mhm.
probably not starting out offering a pension.
No, they're not. They're no. It's like, remember what, 20 years ago, 30, maybe 30, because that's how long I've been out of the corporate world. That was just part of the package, but that's
Mm-hmm.
neither one of those, profit sharing or 401ks, are part of the package now, right? Unless you're on a executive level, then things like that come, other things that come along with that to enhance um, the lure to bring in new employees. But yeah, retirement plans, y- you can't use that for your future, and people are not staying at jobs for 25, 30 years anymore because of that.
That's a very good point. That's a very, very good point. Even if you're with a large company and you have to think, why should I give you a retirement plan or pay for your education when after I train you to work here, and let's face it, I can train you today to work here today and tomorrow, but next month could be dramatically different because of AI, because of technological advances and what have you. So why should I
Hmm.
put 2 years out, 2 years away in training you, and then you leave and decide to go someplace else? That's
Right.
um, a huge amount of expense on the employer's point of view. And just to bring this around full circle, that is one of the reasons why we think retirement plans are pretty important because in your 20s, I hope this doesn't sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but in your 20s, I remember when I was in my 20s, I was pretty much worried about paying rent and buying beer. Oh, and that student loan I needed to take care of. That was
Right.
pretty good. Because the student loan people will find you.
Oh,
They will find you. um, so that was a worry. But once I hit my 30s, I started developing skills that were indeed necessary, right? And then my life changed, and I got a girlfriend, and I bought a house, and da da da, and on and on and on. Suddenly, I had responsibilities, which really made me look at that benefits package. I was fortunate in that I didn't have children, but if I did have children and a spouse at that time, then that medical benefit would have been incredibly important to me.
hmm
So I think, in a way, employers are kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. They want to bring valuable employees in, however, they don't want them to leave in 2 years. However, they don't want to stay too long because they don't want to pay them too much. However, right, right. So they're in a tough spot, and if you're an employee, you want to work with a secure place. You don't want to have to worry about some things, right? You want to get. We're both out here to get all we can get from the other side. So, if an employee, in my opinion, you might feel different, but you want to get the biggest bang for your buck for that period of your life. And let's just face it, once people hit their 30s and 40s, they tend to be a little bit more rooted to their families, uh, their career because they have responsibilities.
exactly. And as you said, their lives are changing, so their needs are different. And whereas if when you were young and beer and you're paying your school loan and
Hmm.
possibly your rent was a priority.
Possibly.
Possibly it was a priority because if not, I can go home with mom and dad.
Yeah.
But if it gets really bad, right?
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah.
They love me. They'll let me come back
They'll
in.
let me come back. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well.
but when you start thinking, I think for men and women it's obviously different because if I was a man and I know at some point marriage and family was on the horizon, then I'm gonna be looking for something totally different, right? Because I'm no longer I have people I'm responsible for, and
Right.
so and I want to make sure. As a guy told me the other day, he worked at a corporation, a big school, university, but he also um, had started his own business on the side, and his wife also was working at a large school or hospital. I think she was at, but they had small children, and he wanted her to be able to come home and just stay with the kids, maybe work part time. So now that means everything was on him. So I had asked him the question, okay, so when are you looking at? And this is a big thing for my clients, right? So if you're working with a corporation and then you start your own business, when is that timetable for you to make the transition? And my response to them is always, what exactly is your employment package? And that includes medical and retirement. So that when
Good
you
point.
make that transition, you have to be able to replace what your employer is currently paying. So they're generally paying for your health insurance, possibly a portion of your health insurance, but for at least you're in. And now when you come out, it's going to be more because you now will be the employer, but you may not have any employees. So your premium is not, I mean, it ain't much better, but it's going to be a little bit more discounted if there's 5,000 employees versus one employee, right?
Very true.
And then the retirement plan is whatever, depending on who you work for, what that retirement plan may look like and
Okay.
how far are you from retirement, right?
Hmm.
So if you're in your 40s and you're making this transition, you do have the money that has your contributions for there. You don't want to take those out. As I always tell my clients, leave them alone because you don't have any clue there is no guarantee that a business for the first 2 years is going to be successful. And so
Yes.
you do not want to pull money from the retirement unless it's like, in my opinion, life and death. So those are the things I have. Those are the conversations I have with my clients is, can you replace what your employer is providing for you? And that includes the whole package.
I think it's a very good conversation, and I think on the other hand, on the other side of that, mid-sized, smaller employees are asking something very similar, right? They're asking questions like, "What should we do with that retirement plan?" They're asking questions like, "How are we going to replace a person's? What does it mean when someone leaves, and how are we going to replace that person? And what are we going to do with regard to those people that want to work part-time some of the year, not all of the
Mm-hmm.
year? You know,
Mm-hmm.
how do we manage that?" And um, I think it's stated a little bit differently, but one of the things that we look at when we talk with smaller employees or medium-sized employees rather than large ones is the fees that you're paying, right? When you're taking a look at the fees that you're paying as an employer, you have to look at the fees that you're going to be paying as an employee or as someone on their own business, like you were saying, those medical expenses, those dental expenses, those retirement thing or expenses that are going to come out of your check. Same thing with as an employer, you've got fees for the retirement plan. In my case, fees for the retirement plan. Are you on top of those? Right. Another thing to
Mm-hmm.
take a look at is how is your documentation. You know, as a person who's owns their own business, you've got massive amounts of documentation you need to be aware of. If you're not aware of it, you're going to get bit. It's not going to be pretty. Same thing with small employers when it comes to their retirement plan. They have to document. You got to
Mm.
document the meetings. You have to document that you did what's best for the employees. You got to document, you know, how you did that. I think the most interesting thing to remember though is that just like with a small employee, or it's just like with a small person doing with small person, just like with a business person opening up their small business, their tax returns, their fees, their information, their documentation, their um, whatever it is, their cash flow, that's
Mm-hmm.
specific to them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So no one can tell you exactly what that's supposed to look like, but you do have to document it, and that's what we find is the biggest problem with medium-sized employees. It's not that they have the intent to deceive, but they're too busy running around to where they don't document. And
Mm-hmm.
it could be something simple like, oh, this mutual fund is in this class, and a better idea would have it in this class, and we have enough money in the plan, but we just never made the change. And we never talked with our advisor to reevaluate that.
Mm.
Just like on your side, you know, you're paying X amount of dollars for the widget, or you're offering someone a benefit for childcare. None of your people have kids.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you need to do that? Or the way that you're doing it, which is really, really troubling. Maybe you have an FSA account and you can use that to pay for things on a pre-tax basis. That'd be cool, right?
Yeah.
That'd be cool. But as a medium-sized employer, you know, instead of giving someone a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5% raise, maybe give them a 3% raise and put 3% into their retirement plan so that you can pay them pre-tax money, which is going to save you assets on your taxes. You know, so
Exactly.
there's lots of things that you can do to make sure. But I think I have a little list of things that I'm going down here. The last one is the one that really gets us, and that's poor governance structure. That is not having a plan. So not sitting down with your financial advisor and saying, hey, or someone like myself and saying, hey, all right, what's our schedule? When do we need to have stuff? You know, most companies are pretty good at telling you when you need to sign things, but it's those other it's those other things that get you. How often should we meet? How often is it appropriate to meet with the employees? What kinds of things should I watch out for? You know, just having that kind of discussion, what are my fiduciary responsibilities? And documenting it. documenting that you asked, right? It's just as
Right.
important as when you have a small business and you have to document what you spent the money on. I mean, if you go out and you have 8 dinners with clients and you write off 50% of that, that's fine. You just got to tell them you had 8 dinners, you wrote off, and you're going to write off 50% of them. That's fine.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting how I wove that in there.
Just it's fine. So let me ask this question because I know this group, and you may not have any nonprofits in your as clients, but they're notorious for um, they're so busy caring about everybody else that usually the nonprofit, even as it grows, and a nonprofit can grow substantially faster than a private corporation, mainly because it's all based upon the funding you get. So all of a sudden, you get $5 million for
Right.
a 5 year period, right?
Right.
Well, you're going one substantially more. More programs and so forth and so on, and you're going to bring in more staff because you got
Yep.
to run that staff, and now that would take you from say a mom and pop fun nonprofit to a full on mid-sized company nonprofit, or in some cases a large company, depending on you know you could be a Goodwill, right, which is huge, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
they get tens of thousands of employees, but that doesn't mean that they leave mentally. They do not leave the small one two, I did this for this is a purpose and a passion project,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm a big company, right? And I got to do all kinds of governances. I got to besides my nonprofit reporting, there are other reporting that you have to do on that side. You have to have internal things and so forth. So and and I say this because there was a company that was a large, would have been considered a large, mid to large size nonprofit, and they lost a lot of their contracts, their governmental contracts. And
Mm-hmm.
so they, started laying off people, but then they got hit. They had a huge financial deficit going on, and so they had to make some real critical decisions. But they were between a rock and a hard place because the previous leadership did not do their reporting, and so um, they had to find money. And don't even ask me how this happened, but the money that was with that was being that was for the employees' retirement plan or profit sharing plan or whatever they had
Mm-hmm.
was no longer available, or they didn't have the capital I don't even understand how it happened, but a lot of the employees had to stay long enough for them to be able to for their retirement plan, which tells me that there was things not being done properly. Is that correct? Yeah, I know.
We'd have to look at some specific situations there. I could go off on that. But I will say this that, uh, case in point, a young lady called me and suggested that she wanted to move her assets from her 401k plan into an IRA. And I said, that's a great thing to do. Lots of people do it. It's a great thing. I encourage folks to do that, especially if they're young, because it's very possible that they uh, can invest in some different things outside of their 401k.
Hmm.
And lots of people don't like the idea of their employer being able to look at their 401k, which
Hmm.
most employers, I've never seen an employer who did, but you know, folks feel like they want to have that independence there, and I don't have a problem with that. Also, uh, as we said back on our broadcast a little while ago, when you have multiple 401ks, it doesn't mean you're well diversified. It just means that you have multiple 4. So you have to manage them, and sometimes that's tough. But I did say to her that she would lose some freedoms by moving her assets into an IRA that she had inside the 401k. One of those freedoms is that if the owners of the organization decide to take that money out of your 401k, that is, if they can get their hands on it, because it's not easy. If they can get their hands on it and they take that money out, you have protection. There is a bond in place typically, and you've got the whole law, ERISA law, coming down on them to make sure that they don't rip you off that way. And there's there's what do you call it? There's redress if you happen to have your money inside a 401k plan. Inside the IRA, you don't necessarily have that redress, right? You don't actually have someone watching to make sure that the accounts that you're able to invest in are appropriate for a retirement plan, and so you really need to talk with an advisor to figure out what your goals are with the money that's in that IRA. So I think in a 401k you have a little bit more protection, and that's the thing that I wanted to tell her. So with all of that, if an employer absconds with your money inside the 401k, they got to work pretty hard to do it. And if they pull it off, if they do,
Okay.
there is redress. You can get that money back from them.
Oh, okay.
You can get that money back from them. And then there is insurance companies that insure those assets, and there are ways to get your money back. So what happens when you have a situation like Enron, right, where for some reason your assets are worth nothing? That's a different situation, right? Your assets are, you were investing in this company's stock, and then all of a sudden the company's stock goes down very low, and for some reason that was 80% of your 401k. And now you've got to work there for a while so that the company stock grows back so that it's decent for you to take out, so you can, you can retire with dignity. That's a very different situation, still part of the pension plan, but very, very different than investing in the mutual funds that I generally put people in when I'm in a 401k plan. So we'd really have to take a look at that situation. And in that latter situation, I can see, okay, the stock, the value of the employee's stock went down to such a low cost that those employees that were investing in that had to put money back into their assets, and they had to wait until that value got up to the point where it was decent for them to take out. That I can see. That's just one scenario that could happen. In general, one of the reasons why people do invest in 401ks in mutual funds is so that the situation that you're talking about does not happen.
Okay.
Right? That's why we have well-diversified portfolios, so we can make sure, hey, if this portfolio isn't performing well, or if this mutual fund isn't performing well, we've got 18 others that are looking at the market in a different way, a different part of the market, different advisors, different everything. That's a big protection, rather than just having all of your money in a pension fund where someone absconds with the money and you got nothing.
Right.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and like you said, if we're talking the legalities here, and since we live in such a litigious state or country, those are things that a small business owner, I mean, obviously that, or medium business owner, in some cases, large business owners, that can derail the whole business. The business could be gone because, if someone hits you with a tremendous lawsuit, besides the fact the legal fees, is going to be a major problem. So, on the front end, being much more conscientious, and if that's not your space, then hire someone that it is their space. So that you can make sure that you don't find yourself somewhere on the 5 years down the line being hit with something that a lawsuit that can destroy something that you worked extremely hard for.
Yeah, and I think you're making a really good point, and that's why documentation is so important. It rarely do plans get into trouble because the employer has this intention of ripping off the employees. That's not what we see. What we generally see is the employer did not have regular checkups with regard to the cost of the fees or the cost of the funds, right? And so he ended up paying, or the participants ended up paying dramatically more without some good reason. He didn't, not only did he not check, but he didn't document that he thought the fees were appropriate. So it's little things like that that actually can make it so that you become an easy target for an attorney to go after.
Right.
So it's those kinds of things. And the last thing that I will say is, I think, is that you can hire away responsibility, as you suggested. Get some help. If you're not into benchmarking your plan, get some help. If you don't know how often to benchmark your plan, you don't want to listen to me and do it every 2 years or what have you, get some help. But you cannot give away accountability.
No.
You can give away the responsibility. Oh, benchmark the plan for me. Oh, make sure those fees are appropriate for me. Oh, make sure that this match makes sense for me. You can do that. You can pay someone to do that, but you can't pay someone to take the liability, right? So if you say, hey, benchmark, if you say, hey, benchmark the plan for me, and that person doesn't benchmark the plan,
yeah,
and your plan never gets benchmarked, it's not on the advisor, it's on you, the employer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the advisor's not going to pay, even though they have this 338 thing and all that kind of stuff, and they say, we'll stand beside you. You're still the one on the hook, right? You're still there.
Yeah, that's the way that works.
Yes, you're still going to have to pay. So, okay, so that's that. I think we can bring our program to an end now, since we've talked for quite a ways. Just want to leave everybody with, most times in the case of mid-sized employees, it's not because you're intending to do horrible things, it's just because the documentation isn't there. So let me read your bio, Crystal, and then I'll let you have the last word, and we'll call it done. How's that?
Okay.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for your patience for listening to my friend Crystal and I as I monkeyed with my system to make sure that it worked right. Crystal is a business coach and consultant. She's the CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions, co-director of Recycling Black Dollars. She's also the co-host of another weekly radio program that is The Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert. She's an instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College, a certified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor, and my favorite, a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. And that's only my favorite because I can say that without messing it up. I'm Jevon Thomas, retirement plan advisor, and Crystal, I'll give you the last word.
Again, guys, we're coming to the end of the year, so this information or content we're sharing with you is really valuable. So you want to make sure at the end of this year, before the year ends, that all things are in the proper places and all the things that were supposed to be done, all the compliances has been done. And you've asked questions, right? Because, especially right now, we're in some volatile times right now. You can't just go on what used to be and how it used to be, because we're not living in that world. The used to be world, we're kind of living in the twilight zone. So in the twilight zone, you need to check all of your boxes to make sure that everything is going properly, so you won't be surprised at the end. And so again, just be aware of what's happening, because your retirement is your retirement, and how you're going to survive during that time is on you. And so accountability and making sure you understand what's supposed to happen. That's all we can say, is just stay on top of stuff.
Couldn't have said it better than that. And for those of you that are going to let me know that my sign was backwards, thank you, I appreciate it. I'll get it switched around next week. We'll see y'all later. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye, everyone. Have a good week. Hope you all had a wonderful holiday, and looking forward to the holidays coming up.